Ladies and gentlemen of the comedy-loving podcast world, it is my pleasure to present to you probably one of my favorite young comedians, Mr. Jon Stringer. Welcome to the program, John.
Thank you so much, Tom. Glad to be on, man.
So where did we meet exactly? Was it Austin?
The first time we met was in Austin. Now, was that Cap City that you used to work? Because I would catch shows at Cap City Comedy Club. Do you remember the last time?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't been there in probably 15 years.
Has it been that long?
Yeah, it's been a while.
You did?
Because I did Velveeta Room a few times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When I first met you, I wasn't doing stand-up. And you threw out some advice that rang true. I was a sketch comedy kid through high school and college. I'd always put together... With my buddies, we had a good little, we ran the morning news, and in college I had a show that was live sketch comedy, then a projected video that we had shot and edited, and I'd do that for a couple hours.
Where?
At Texas State University. Had a really good drama program. Like, most of your teachers would miss 6 or 7 weeks in a semester because they'd actually be acting on something on TV. It's like, oh, okay, I'm going to listen to them, and they know what they're talking about. But stand-up was like just... few moving parts. Just you bring your stories. You don't need much of a sound check. Come up, do that. I've always loved it. It's always been like higher form. I only get nervous when I talk to comics, and when I met you, I was just buzzing on comedy. I was raised listening to the best of the best. But you said tell the joke, show the joke, shit in all four corners.
Yeah,
that's the greatest thing. That's the quickest description of what. And something that simple takes your punchline, like from keyholing it, from getting just the meat of this crowd. You get the people, you're flanking left and right, and I noticed that you don't sit there and oscillate like a lot of comics. You don't leave it on the mic. You get involved. You get the guy in the front row.
Yeah, and another important thing is I always try and look everyone in the audience in the eye.
Yeah.
While I'm on. And I think it's important in real life to look people in the eye when you speak to them. A lot of people can't handle when you look them in the eye. You can see like people, their eyes will dart away or they'll look down. And then in comedy, like when I was a young comedian, I would always look over the people's heads. And you can tell when a comedian in his early years is looking over the audience's head and not into their eyes. And there's something about when you look people in the eye, when you speak, your words flow out of your mouth more naturally.
Have a moment. That's what I mean. That is the actual connection, and it is all those negative movements like looking down or taking a step backwards, or even when a comedian doesn't know what they're gonna say next. What's next? What else can we talk about? Those little moments, you lose that connection. You kind of lose momentum. It's like getting, if you're pushing a dead car, you get it rolling. It's like stopping for a second for a breather. Oh, you got to do that shit again. So it's those little lost moments I've always noticed. You roll them one. You never look like, and it also stops hecklers from ever feeling like they can step up. If they can tell you're on something, like you're on a rail trying to prove a point, they shut the fuck up. I love that part.
Well, like you seem like you're in control of.
Yeah, if you're in a moment, and like I said, they're your stories. You can be in love with them, tell them as if it's the first time you ever said that shit. So then you can connect with it, and if people can see you're on a rail, I don't know. It's only when I only see people blurt out, unless once again, always the rule, if they're super inebriated and they think you're talking to them specifically and they answer every question you say. Other than that, hecklers only speak up when they see gaps or they're asked questions. If sometimes when you ask a question, it's just rhetorical, like, you guys know when you do this, right? And you roll right into it. But I always found, like, does anybody else do this?
Is there any other great comedy advice you've gotten from anyone else?
Shoot, man. J.R. Brow, he was the first comic I hosted for. Fantastic comic. Yeah, one of the. Well, he's one of those comics you see him, and just his show is so good front to back. You think, I put together an hour like that, I make it. You know what I mean? Like, that's so tight front to back. It's got the room rocking, very likable guy, like a lot of intangibles. And you watch that and you're like, well, if he's just not completely mainstream, what chance have I got? You know what I mean? Like very very early on, definitely someone to see and look and really enjoy that. And he told me, and I'm talking specifically about hosting, but I find hosting to be an art form. And when I did it, boy, I took it super seriously. And he was the first person I hosted for at Cap City in Austin, Texas. And on Wednesday night, I went out and gave all the energy I could, and I did well. But if it's not an A, it feels like an F. I think that's consistent with comedians. And so I got off feeling like,
good way to describe it.
yeah, if it's a C plus or fuck it, if it's an A minus, you're still just like, there's some, I know, well, I'm used to better, so I should do better. And often, it's usually your connection to your stories that decides that. But he came up, he was very encouraging. He's like, dude, you're really funny. You've only been doing it for this long. That's incredible. You want to double your laughs? All you have to do, tell them how smart they are for coming on this week and how excited you are to bring these guys up next. Just like, you guys are so smart for being here.
Nice.
These guys are just outstanding. I'm telling you, you couldn't have picked a better week. I love them. You're going to love them. And introduce like that, and I'll be damned if it didn't work exactly like that. If they feel, it's very similar to the reason Roberto is so.
Roberto's a great man, yeah.
Likable right away, good energy. He's not afraid of facial expressions, a little impressions. Yeah. He's not afraid to get silly, and that gets people to drop their guard, and they know they're in good hands.
Yeah.
And so J.R. Brow, like right off the bat, that was one that I took very seriously, and I think even hosts, features, and headliners can learn from that mold, is just to let people know, hey, I'm here because you exist, and feel that graciousness, because I'm grateful you made the conscious effort to come out and see this. It's a weird thing to come out and see, to be honest. It's a weird thing to do for a living.
Well, they always say that likability is 90% of stand-up comedy. And you are probably one of the most likable comedians I've ever seen.
I appreciate it.
And one of the most likable human beings. So, are you from like a good family? I mean, did this accidentally happen? I mean,
no, my family is fantastic.
Was it something you worked at?
I mean,
did you just be so charming and lovable?
No, man. Oh, to work at. I mean, I think every artist wants to be liked. I think. Okay, when I started comedy, I definitely think I was doing it for acceptance on some level, at an insecure level. I think I was doing comedy for acceptance. And it's so funny, you get to a point in your comedy where you're no longer asking, you're comfortable in saying, oh, the shit's funny, I'm very comfortable with what I'm putting out, I really like the art form, I'm loving the process. And so you're no longer seeking acceptance, you're just seeking attention, which is what we always were as children, seeking attention in some way, shape, or form. And so now I just I don't need acceptance, I just need your attention. That's the way I fill seats, that's the way I run. The simple part of this business is to build your empire organically, get a few followers. You were talking about it. But,
yeah, and that is basically, in truth, why I wanted to have you on my podcast. I wanted to highlight you. We've worked together a few times through the years. It's fun. When we worked here at the Laugh Factory.
Oh my God!
In Vegas a few years ago, which was funny. And I wanted to have you on. I want you to have more fans. I want more people to know about Jon Stringer. So.
I think so. The scene is interesting. I've kept my head low. I have not been doing stand-up long. And so the initial reaction when someone hears how long you've been doing comedy, they have that initial judgment. And everyone has the right to have that judgment. Comedians that have paid their dues, so to speak, they've been in 10, 15, 20, 25 years. They're seasoned. They've seen it all. They've done the nightmare. They've done the tip-top. You name it. So I will continue to keep my head low and work as hard as I can and kind of respect the process and let things naturally go. I'm not great at asking for things. I'm good at just putting it on stage, and people will recommend or reach out to me, which I'm very fortunate. The people that believe in me enough to keep bringing me back and things of that nature. But yeah, man, I think this is the year, and I'm so glad you're exposing me to your fan base, because I think this is the year where I'm going to take a sincere effort, get my albums recorded. I've got a DVD, I've got a
great
CD,
material.
I've got
you got
outline.
So much great material, and then something I want my listeners to know. You got married not too long ago.
Yeah,
wonderful woman, Joanna from South Dakota.
And
for for lack of a better description, you're to me you're like the Tom and Ashna of what I was doing with Ashna when we were driving around America and going to gigs, and
Yep.
you guys, you got your car and you're driving all over America going to gigs, and I want to talk to you about that lifestyle because it is when you got the right person and to travel with you, it's really romantic, and it's kind of a Thelma and Louise, Bonnie and Clyde.
It's one thing to see something, but then to look over your shoulder and to experience with someone else. It's being reflected with someone else means the absolute world to me. This is something I've been missing. I was so anti-relationship. I had written off the possibility of even being a boyfriend just because I knew of the sacrifice both myself and whoever I would be dating would be taking on, because we're gone 45, 50 weeks a year doing comedy.
And it always kills relationships.
Who is
to all the
secure?
travel.
Yeah, including me. Who's secure enough to be with someone they're not going to see for most of a year?
Yeah.
No one, including myself. But she has numerous passions. Really intelligent girl. Degree in marketing. I met her in Wichita, Kansas, on social. I mean, not on social media, on fucking Tinder.
I thought that was just a joke that you
Not
did.
a joke. I met her on
You
Tinder.
met her on the
and
fucking app?
I absolutely rejected every advance she sent my way because I was very... What's that?
Something's going on.
Something's beeping?
Maybe there's a fire.
Yeah.
maybe this is the day the Tropicana goes down.
I was very as outward as I could be in the information. I hate dating apps. Tinder, I could get many girls to come out to shows in a given weekend, and it was a no pressure. I'm not dating.
Were you having sex with girls
no
all over
hookups.
America?
No.
You were just using Tinder
to get women to come to shows.
That's hilarious. I don't believe a word of it.
It worked like unbelievable because I was being nice. I said absolutely no hooking up, not looking to date. I laid it out like that, and I really wasn't. I reject that. If anything, we've got the gift of gab. Meeting someone and stumbling in person is something we've overcome our whole life. So I'd rather do it the old-fashioned way. At any rate, that night she came to the show. I didn't suck. Tim Gaither was the headliner. I was the feature. And then she took me to a bar, and then I wasn't hitting on her or returning any interest. And then she's like, well, I've got 4 dogs at my house, and that got the hooks in. I was like, okay, I like dogs. And still I was like, kick me out if it gets too late. And she more or less lured me to stay overnight. And
she's an absolute cutie. She's an intelligent, wonderful human being. And I
wonderful.
feel like, because like my marriage just ended, but I still love Ashna, and we're still great friends and everything. But
I love that.
It makes me reminiscent of that magic period in our life when we were living out of the car and driving all over America.
We
and
are.
It was like, and we'd go like, I'd take her to, Four Corners and where Utah and Colorado and Arizona and New Mexico meet, where those, the Native Americans at the cliff dwellings went to battle a little bighorn. Montana. I was constantly wanting to dazzle this woman with, the beauty and greatness of America, and the things that I'm into.
Oh, I completely agree.
So tell me about your adventures that you've had with Joanna driving around.
We've almost, I think I'm probably 10 states shy of doing all of North America. I've got a lot of Canada that I haven't touched, and but that, her being from South Dakota, we've done everything from South Dakota. I haven't touched much of the West Coast, and I haven't touched all of the East Coast, but everything in between. Man, we've driven in whiteout blizzards. We've had to stay, and this is what's so great, man. You said it perfectly. What people don't understand about comedy is how much automotive maintenance is involved.
Yeah.
And I do
car repair.
I'm
people don't realize like how much car repair you're gonna have to fucking invest in.
I'm pleased to say that.
So much.
No, cuss it. I'll talk. I know the owner of the podcast. I can get him to bleep those out. No. I do, and I always have enjoyed doing my own work on cars. I've restored classic cars. All of my cars were carbureted up until about 7 years ago when Rhodes got
I didn't
busier.
know you were a gearhead.
Oh, I love it. Absolutely love it. But then, you fall in love with the simplicity. I have a little Nissan Versa, cheapest car in the world. I got it for $4,500 with only 25,000 miles on it. That's like the money you would spend on a cheap used motorcycle. And I've gotten 180,000 miles out of it, and it's still running, and I know it's going to die soon. But so my wife and I, yeah, she is so down and so perfect. She supports the lifestyle. She helps me with all the administrative stuff that gives me a little anxiety, like when someone needs a contract printed, signed, and faxed over immediately. Not fax, 2 faxes.
No, but like did scan and email.
Oh,
that's what all that stuff Ashna used to do for me. And
oh
it was great.
My God, that's the plug in my system.
You book a gig and then they need the bio and the photos, and like she would, like, as a comedian, like that's, okay, I'll get to that in a couple of weeks, but she would instantly send things.
If you say I'll get to it at the end of that sentence, that just means we will forget until we're reminded and we're almost behind schedule. That's what to me it means. And then she's just like, okay, sent. What was so wrong? It makes it so easy, but and helps me put travel schedules together. Just being so supportive. It's once again, it's a superhuman power when you find someone. That sounds super cheesy, but the hardest sell of being an artist is selling yourself on the idea that you're worth all this trouble, that this is what you're going to be doing. You're saying goodbye to stable income, 9 to 5. You're saying goodbye to normalcy on a lot of other levels. So the sacrifice is you get to do this one thing, and it's not uncommon for you to fall off that path and have doubts about what you're doing and what the what am I putting out? You have all these questions, and then to have someone there that believes in it, and they're like, hey, shut the fuck up. Thousands of people like you. Shut up. Keep going. So that. Anytime I've wavered in the idea that, oh man, is this really? She's like, hey, shut up. You're killing it. You do very well. You're doing very well. Look at you. So it's nice. That definitely makes you feel a little bit bulletproof.
Now, are you at the point where you can kind of book things the way you want to plan adventures, hey, we'd like to be in.
I'm not. I think in these last 2 years, who's the comedian that said you're not paying me to do comedy, you're paying me to leave my house?
Oh, I don't know.
I love that sentence or that statement. But you're paying me to leave my house is absolutely right. I love being home so much that I would say the last 2 or 3 years has been the biggest of me actually turning down a good number of gigs because financially or time wise it simply doesn't make sense. So more now I am saying yes to the clubs I love in the months that I'd like to be there, so I'm not in the north and ridiculous
That's
times
what I'm
of the year.
talking about.
Yeah. But as far as I'm not at the level where I can say hey, I'm swinging from vine to vine through Florida and then through. I don't have that clout yet. What I found where I am in comedy, and like I said, I hope to change it. Immediately recording after these albums, I'm gonna push. But I find that's when I'll get that freedom, and that's when I'll want to make all those connections and really go out and wear myself out to get to all the corners of land. I've supplemented more by getting really expanding the clean comedy market, getting on cruises, doing more corporate and things like that, so that I can do the clubs that I really love, and that'll replace 6 terrible gigs that are close to the Canadian border and questionable at best front-wheel drive cars.
I remember people always go, oh man, you must eat so terrible on the road, and it's all fast food and shit. We were driving, Ashna would always Google and Yelp the best restaurants. Drive through Des Moines, Iowa, and you can find the best Thai restaurant or whatever. There's a very nice way to do it. And then we would always hit grocery stores, and she'd be making sandwiches while I drove and making salads.
We do the same thing, man. And I almost wanted to put it together to where coffee fans, where can you get good cheap coffee along the way? Hey, come on in. Get a good coffee, good sandwiches, 24/7 grocery stores for getting that. The handbook of doing road comedy should be written because there's an affordable and safe way to do it. I was talking to someone just how I feel like a lot of female comedians don't get you don't see them on the road as often. You don't see the opportunities handed out as often. A lot of it being because they can't road grind, I think, as recklessly as male comics can. Sleeping at rest stops. Yeah. I mean, even if you're crashing on a buddy's couch, point blank, dudes are fucking creepy. Even dudes you've known since college can be creepy.
It's true.
So, and that makes me super sad. Like that. Because,
well, I mean, that's the world we live in, where women are hunted and fucking. There's just so many evil people in the world. I don't know if you know Patty Vasquez, brilliant Mexican American comedian from Chicago, and I had this conversation with her. Because, like when you're by yourself as a comedian, save bucks, you sleep in the rest areas. And she told me when she was doing the road, she would find churches and sleep in the church parking lot. And she said she was still terrified and could only sleep for a few hours. But that was, as a woman, like her safest option for trying to do the road and stuff.
Oh, man. I mean, even as a dude, sometimes I'm judging
I've been scared sleeping in rest areas.
I listened to it.
I've had
What's going on?
You had a driver's ed class in Oviedo, Florida.
I'm from Oviedo.
With an Angie Clem.
Oh,
the parents of Angie Clem are in that audience.
Oh, wonderful people. Thank you, my brother.
That is so cool.
That's great.
That's super funny.
Yeah.
You get that a lot? I mean,
I do, and it's
so
nice
much
because,
time
like,
in
my
comedy.
high school, where I grew up in Oviedo, Florida, it was a smallish high school. Everybody knew that I wanted to be a comedian, so I got to do everything. I got to do my junior and senior years. I got to host all the pep rallies. I got to host the talent shows. I did the afternoon announcements. I really got to do everything.
That's great.
And then so through the years, people like that I went to high school with always will come and see me, and it's really
that's
beautiful.
great. Yeah,
and I went
great
like
support base.
some
right
people hated
that.
school. I loved school.
I loved school.
I was learning shit, and then
It got me out of the house.
they let me develop as a comedian.
Yeah.
My high school drama speech teacher, Mr. Martin, was this gay black man, and he was probably one of the greatest influences of my life, because speech class and drama, there was a little stage, and he would give me the first 5 minutes of every class to do my comedy, because he knew I wanted to be a comedian.
Right.
And he said, if you misbehave in my class, I'll take it away from you. So I was the most well-behaved in his class. And then also for drama and debate, he taught me how to build an argument, which I still use those kind of thoughts when I'm structuring jokes, and then that a story should always lead somewhere and have an ending and stuff, So.
I need a class on structure. I really do. Or something. My writing, it's so sporadic. I ride the wave when things are flowing creatively. I find there's some magic in taking a piss, because that's when ideas connect in my head, and I'm like, oh my god! I wish a piss lasted longer. I try to wait to build them up, just thinking like, oh, genius is gonna flow out of me. But it really is when I connect some dots in my head. And I'm like, I've had this joke sitting on it for months, tried it at 1 or 2 open mics with little traction, and then pow, it happens.
Like, you should be drinking water constantly
during a shower. Yeah, exactly. So he's gonna put me on stage in 2 or 3 minutes. Right? I'm gonna run to the bathroom real
we'll
quick.
We'll talk more in
that would be wonderful.
All right, my brother.
Awesome, man.
Kick-ass, Johnny.
Yes, thank you. I'm gonna go hit it.
I've been singing all the single ladies all week because of you. I love your opening.
That's funny, man.
He does the Beyonce dance to open up.
I can do the entire Juilliard audition.
I think by your 4th dance move, the audience is completely in love with you. So, all right, buddy, go get him.
Thank you.
And we are back. How was the? What were you about to say?
Oh,
I never miss a compliment.
The compliment that I pay, but that is mutually agreed upon, is that upon meeting you, you're a guy that comes across as someone you've known for a long time.
Oh, nice.
It's almost like, I don't know, like you're part of that tribe almost right away. And I'm sure you're not an easy person. Like, I'm sure you're not easy with everybody. I'm sure you're selective as the next person.
I mean, I have a special kinship
yeah.
with comedians, and I look at comedians as my tribe, and I think it's I'm a pretty easy guy to get along with.
100%. Yeah, that's the going rumor. It's just like, oh, great guy. Like, and I'm like, no, I mean,
I have troubles like everybody. I mean, shit, getting divorced was rough, and not as rough as losing my dad and my sister, but I mean, we all have our off days. But just trying not to be a cock in life is my main mantra, and that's what that's what I like the most about you is like, and I think we were saying that right before the show is like, you're so likable on stage, and you're such a joy to work with because you're never moody or grumpy, and you're always enthusiastic about doing the show. So
thank you, man.
Where do you get this defect?
This defect, I told some features that I work with. One of my biggest compliments I can give to somebody is, hey man, in comedy you're refreshingly normal, and that is a compliment. If you're not a difficult person, if you follow certain etiquette, if you are polite on stage, we can be dicks. Off stage, I swear to God, I'm a Boy Scout. I want everybody to go the speed limit. I know we all speed a little, but like in all aspects, I'm looking out for the little guy. If someone's being taken advantage of, if someone's being overly aggressive, I like to kind of have that. I don't know. It's a
I've always been for the underdog, and I had two older brothers that were bullies. I hate bullies. I hate that thug.
Very similar.
I hate thug jock mentality.
Yep.
And I'm very much for trying to unite humanity in my comedy. That's
I completely. Well, yeah. I mean, I talk a little shit, but yeah, for sure. I mean,
so we were talking about you and Joanna traveling around the world, and it's like such a romantic thing. Like, so like, what are some of the most difficult and terrible experiences? I remember one time, Ash and I were driving from, I think, Nevada to Montana, and in Utah we stopped at a Starbucks for coffee, and we had these giant coffees, and Ashna, this was right when we first started dating, and she first started traveling with me, and I had this older BMW, and she knocked over the large coffees, and it went all over into the transmission stick, and then so the car started bucking, and then it wouldn't, the gear, it
wasn't engaging, or it was intermittent.
It's fucked up the car. We had to stop, and I'm thinking, oh my God, I was starting to get pissed, but I didn't, I was crazy about her. We had first started dating, and I'm like, I didn't want to, overreact to blow my top, but I was kind of fuming, and we waited in some grocery store parking lot for like an hour or two, and then once it dried, it went back into gear, and it worked perfectly fine.
Yeah.
So you're a car person.
No, I'm sitting here thinking, what on earth could coffee ruin, especially on a Volkswagen? Something.
No, it's a BMW.
Oh, I thought you said it was a VW. My fault.
BMW.
Well, that's even more concerning because that's a car like staked on precision, and
yeah.
So I can't think of how external moisture going through the shifter, through the console, could do anything. I have no idea. I'm absolutely.
I don't know. Just the car started bucking, and I'm like, oh my God.
Than electrical, or if there were fuses or anything under there that could have to do with the functionality of what gear it's in, but I have no idea. It sounds only electrical. That's hilarious. She won't even call it our honeymoon because of how terrible it turned out. We ended up, we got married, kept our wedding real small, 20 people, including officiate, the photographer. We just invited the people that would kill us if we didn't invite them, and everybody else were like, let's keep it cheap. And then the next day, we drove out to Las Vegas, bought a 1984 motorhome, 1984 30-foot motorhome. Well, I can't remember what it was called. What? Holiday Rambler Alumilite XL. And if you Google this right now, it looks exactly like Breaking Bad meth lab. But I liked it. It was something that I was ready to renovate. We both fell in love with its basics. I can work on the engine. I can work on the transmission, do the brakes. We can make the inside a rolling one-bedroom apartment. So we just had to drive it home. Well, before we could even leave, I put in 2 days of work on it. Getting the carb right, getting all the plugs right, replacing the whole fuel line. It was not in the condition they told me it was in. Had to get all new tires and all that. We started our voyage. We probably got 300 miles into it. We died in the middle of nowhere, and it was freezing. They were sleeping on a questionable 3-inch thick mattress where the springs and the knots in it, where we both slip in sleeping bags and sleep outdoors. You can see your breath. We're both cold in a broken down. This is our honeymoon. We're driving back in this heap, and we're there all night. We find some place that literally they're willing to haggle with us on, like, I believe they asked what kind of pills we had, and I'm like, oh, I don't know, man. I mean, I don't have any pills like you would want. And he's like, okay, well then we can charge you this. And I'm like, I don't care. There was someone in their stable that could work.
The mechanic wanted drugs.
The dude working the front register. We were in Winslow, Arizona, I believe. Yes, and yeah, man, we just rolled upon this place. Couldn't get our couldn't get our motorhome started. Some guy in there was a wizard with carburetors, and he disassembled it and built it. And we stayed overnight there, and like I said, froze our asses off. And then the next morning we got in, and drove, and got about an hour, and it died again. And at this point, I'd taken it apart and put it back together. I'm soaked. I have gasoline in my body, in the bowel. Like, I'm just ruined. I reek of it. I can't get it off my skin. And then a dude who rebuilt it was willing to drive all the way out, 100 miles or whatever we got away, rebuild it, make sure that it was right, and then we drove from that moment without the sleep we needed from being cold all those nights. We just drove straight through to Austin, Texas, from basically Winslow, Arizona. I can't remember where we were, only an hour
And then
away.
you got rid of the Winnebago thing?
Yeah, we ended up
Like,
in
to
bed.
fuck
So, no,
this, right? Yeah.
we put man hours into that shit. We were willing to live in that thing. It took a fortune to get it home, and then once we got it home, we gutted it. It was all water rotted. So we fixed the roof, completely replaced that. We gutted the inside, replaced the subfloor, re-insulated, spraying insulation, put in 50 amp electrical, and we got that far in the process, laid down laminate hardwood floors, like it just looked good. And we got to that point, and my wife did the math, and she's like, it's going to be 15 grand just to get the things that we want to put them in. That doesn't include the time. That doesn't include all the mess ups. Anytime you have a project, just double it. Double the budget. So we just got disappointed. It would have taken everything that we had to complete it, and I don't have the time in comedy. When do you have time to really dive into your hobbies? So I didn't get to do.
You need a reliable vehicle.
Yeah, I did.
Well, that BMW that I was telling you about, Ashin and I were in Montana for like a month, and when we were leaving, we hit a deer, and it kind of crunched in the whole front end.
Sedan or?
It was a 535
okay.
I or
yeah.
E, something like that. And the repair, the guy fixed it enough where we could limp it back to Florida. We limped this wounded vehicle back to Florida. And then,
safely.
Yeah.
Might not look so good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it looked terrible.
Yeah.
And everything. The thing I remember, when we were traveling around, because you're trying to save money on the road and everything, we used to stay in these, like, Motel 6s, and I'd drive, like, I'm sure you've done, like, 12, 14-hour days,
Yes.
trying to get, long distances. And I remember staying with Ashna in Motel 6s, and just, like, wrapped up like an octopus around her, holding her, trying to sleep and get some rest while you can hear the big subways screaming by on the highway,
Yep.
And there's these shitty
You are a
Motel
truck
6s.
stop.
And then there came a point where, some shady activities in Motel 6s, we stepped it up, and then I would only, like, Comfort Inn was as low as we would go.
Yeah.
For
weird.
For hotel rooms. And
For if we have to hustle, there are days where you only have like 24 hours to get to somewhere that's 20 hours away.
Yeah.
So if we ever she's great. Used to, when we started doing road together, I'm sure you had this. It drives me crazy. Where I'm putting in the first 10 to 14 hour leg, I'm good for that much time. I can stay focused. I can listen to podcasts. I'm locked in. But when I start to really feel tired, I can't stop the yawns, I might have one blink, I know that it's time. She usually stays awake and keeps me company until she peters out that last hour or two. And then when I'm dog tired, she might not always be ready. We've gotten better communication, but in the beginning she'd keep me company, and then she'd pass out the last hour, and I'd be like, what the hell? I'm literally about to drive off the road, and I know I can't ask her to drive now. So what I love, though, she is an absolute warrior. We'll sleep. When we need to, we'll just grab a few hours at a rest stop. We love staying, I don't want to say seedy, but kitschy and maybe a little run down. Anything on old Route 66. Like, we'll stay in anything that has a crazy theme. Like,
cool. Well, I got one for you, and you should say. Well, but I'm thinking. I remember one time Ashna and I in one of my cars, I didn't have air conditioning, and in August we drove from Texas to Las Vegas,
Mhm.
and we both smoked cigarettes back then.
Yeah.
And we drove with all the windows down. It was so hot, but it was kind of cool. The wind blowing, and
That's
we
the
had
only
a
way to get through the
cooler
desert.
full of drinks in the back
Yeah.
seat and everything. But there's a God, what is it? Santa Fe, New Mexico, the El Rey Inn. Each room is like a little New Mexico adobe house, and they each have fireplaces. And when you stay there in the winter, they bring you wood, as much wood as you want. And it's such a cool place. I would always try and drive through Santa Fe if we're going through the Southwest.
Yeah.
And we were there once, and it
Snowing?
snowed everywhere, and we stayed for a couple of days.
So beautiful
and
out there.
just keeping fires burning. That's a big recommendation.
Santa Fe, geographically, where is that, or what's it next to?
New Mexico. I'd have to look at a map.
Yeah.
It's been a while since I drove.
That
through.
sounds awesome. We stayed in this really cheesy. I'm sure it had its heyday, but they were wigwams. They were like big.
Oh, I've stayed. We stayed.
Yeah,
in those,
you-
yeah.
oh, you stayed
There's
in
a
one?
couple of.
Yeah.
I think in Arizona we stayed. They're like they're cement tents. They look like tents.
Yep. But
And
they
then
have
old
those
classic cars and
hanging out in the parking lot. Yeah, dude. And I love that stuff.
That's somewhere in Arizona.
I hate that Route 66 is just getting swept and paved and erased. And so we're in a race.
Did a photo project of Route 66.
Oh,
So
really?
we
What
tried-
for?
We just wanted to drive as much of it that was left. And
Where'd you start?
Oh shit, I don't remember.
Yeah.
Texas, maybe Abilene, and went through.
That's exactly what we want to do.
Yeah.
We want to see as much of that Americana as possible. That's so cool to me.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
the Madonna Inn in San Luis Obispo.
Just so many
The
gimmicks.
Austin Motel in Austin. They got a great pool. There's so many like cool old motels and stuff that.
And doing a photography shoot on all that, she was smart to do that because what's some of the coolest work, you see all this great old steel work and those really elaborate, eye-catching fuel-up stations that have been left in the middle of nowhere to ruin.
Yeah.
And they no longer have their
I love
glass
seeing ghost
anymore.
gas
and maybe,
stations.
maybe even the roof is caved in at this point, but it's like the best, most angled and flashy of its time architecture to get some good photography out there. I just drive around looking at old, like Steel Town here. We go out to Fremont. I'm wowed by that, but there's a graveyard. The
airplane graveyard?
You didn't end up making it out there.
I've seen it from a distance, but I've never.
You have to
actually-
book an appointment for it.
Oh, you're talking about the neon sign
Yeah,
thing?
yeah,
Oh, yeah,
yeah,
we've been
yeah.
there. No, I thought you meant. I think it's in somewhere in Nevada or Arizona in the desert is an airplane graveyard.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and it's just
They just let
hundreds
you walk
of
around
old
and kind of
airplanes.
climb around in.
Yeah, it's like a junkyard for airplanes.
Did you ever do USO shows?
A few, yeah, in Okinawa,
Did you ever get
Germany.
to climb around some stuff, some cool stuff?
A little bit.
Does that not? It made me instantly 5. I was into GI Joe. I was so into glue model planes and glue model cars, but the instant you're an adult, I mean it. Fuck, man! When they said you get to get inside this tank, you get to climb around in this, I don't know, man. These gigantic planes and jet planes. I don't know. I was wigging out. I even got to let an attack dog latch onto my arm. That shit is just so fascinating to me.
I got to go fly in the Sacramento police helicopter last year.
Yeah?
Yeah, with the day patrol.
Are they smooth or bumpy? I haven't been in a
They're it's pretty light and bumpy, but it was pretty cool. The as much as people talk shit about the police, there was a illegal Mexican immigrant guy who tried to commit suicide by jumping off of a highway overpass. And we get the call, and the Sacramento police had stopped the highway, and we're hovering over it, and these cops stopped a big motor coach bus and got it to angle itself underneath the hanging overpass. The guy's like holding onto the outer fence part, and this cop is out there, talking to him. And then the cop kind of wrestled the guy off the fence and landed him on the roof of the motor coach, and I got to witness the whole thing.
Wow.
It was amazing.
How were you in a helicopter seeing this firsthand?
I did a benefit for the Sacramento police at the
And
Punchline.
this was your ride-along?
And it was the helicopter division and the canine division. and I had told him that my father flew helicopters in Vietnam, and that loved helicopters, and my dad flew Hueys, and they said we got a Huey.
I'd love it.
But they didn't take me up on that. I just went up in the regular.
I'd love it if this is where you were like, my dad never flew that shit. I just said it. It just seems like that's something you could.
No, it was really great and fun to do it. And then like 2 weeks later, the Sacramento police like killed an unarmed black man in the backyard of his grandmother's house. And
the helicopter.
It wasn't the
almost jump off the bridge thing was old news.
Well, the helicopter footage where the body's like infrared heat. I remember seeing that on the news. I was like, oh shit.
Your ride along happened to be one of the best things ever to see.
It was pretty awesome.
That's like Die Hard.
They're good
shit.
dudes.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah.
No.
I mean, I don't, And then, then the police departments do something like kill an unarmed person,
I've got law enforcement.
But it's, my cousin's a cop. It's,
yeah.
He had a meltdown and walked away from it. But it's a tense occupation.
Oh, it absolutely is.
So let's talk about our occupation.
Yeah.
So you got so many jokes about. It's great, man. You being married, and you got all these jokes about being happily married, and I remember being that guy. So
yeah, it is a well of funny little stories. Yeah.
It's really great and refreshing.
Yeah. I know. No, I absolutely love it, man.
You're happy in your life.
Since I've been married,
flowing.
Jokes are flowing. I told you this is the year of turning down gigs I don't have to do anymore, which is really nice. And keeping the relationships nice and all that. But since I've been married, I've added at least an hour and a half of material.
What's your best joke about being married, you think?
Oh, I mean, the truth, the basis of it all, I say, I just say to people, I'm excited to tell you, I just got married. They all clap, and then I say, or as I like to say, I found the woman I want to raise me. Very simple, but that is the basis for what I feel every woman, I don't know, if you date a guy, you go through it. I don't care if you're gay or straight. When you're dating a guy, we're not complete and mature for a very long time. Every 10 years, we look at the old us and get a little embarrassed by, what the fuck was I thinking? So I'm still growing up, but yeah, man, I found, people say my person, and that's super cliche. But yeah, I'm very much in the phase where the energy's great. We want the same thing. We're chasing our passions freely. We're not interested in kids because we realize to sort of chase wildly what we're after is a bit selfish. You have to be selfish with your time. I can't fully comprehend what it takes to raise a child, but we're not in any position or circumstance to do that.
Someone told me a story years ago about Rich Jenney. Some comedian asked him if he wanted to have kids, and he goes, "I'm the star of this movie."
That's funny. That's not bad. That's really good.
I love that joke about you found the person to raise you, and let's talk about and it's funny. I know I'm a better person from having spent 10 years with Ashna, but like what are like you told me that you rode a bicycle from Texas to Alaska?
Yes.
To raise money for curing cancer.
Yeah, so it's huge. It's the MD Anderson Cancer Research Center in Houston, Texas.
Yeah, there's one in Orlando. My sister had breast cancer.
Very aggressive. They got their shit together. They are the cutting edge. Some of the biggest breakthroughs are just finding out what treatments do what with this type of, that's one of the biggest breakthroughs is just finding out, oh, you have this type of cancer. This usually is effective, or they can tell you right away, we don't know anything that is effective to your illness, so then comfort becomes the focus, which is still a big breakthrough. You know what I mean? But
yep.
if you're dealing with something really aggressive, that's the place, that's the organization. So the group is there at the time it was University of Texas and Texas college kids. There were 43 of us that started it. In 2009, we took 43 kids from Austin, Texas to Anchorage, Alaska, and raised money along the way. We all had to raise $5,000 each to be able to go on the trip, and then we just raised every single mile. So we had to ride. It took 70 days to get there. We averaged about 70 miles per day of riding to get the distance across. And my group, we split after we rode 4, 5, 6 days together. Then we split and met back up in Whitehorse, and then rode the final 10 days together. And that was
Whitehorse, Montana?
no, we were in Canada.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. On the Alkic Highway.
Wow.
A lot of that's not paved. Bicycles. Yeah, we had road bikes. So they had the Sierra route where we went north to basically Lubbock, and then we went west. You were talking about the Four Corners. We went west basically from the panhandle of Texas all the way to San Francisco. So you can imagine the terrain we hit in that time.
Wow, yeah.
Headwind, tailwind, crosswind. You imagine. I mean, we were in the desert at
the
times.
Rockies must have.
Oh, dude, they're
been a little bit on the thighs.
In the day, I mean, they say you ride so hard or pedal so hard you see Jesus. We had to ride. There's a hill between Whistler and Lillooet, and up in Canada, and it is 10 miles continuous of somewhere between 8% and 15% grade, and 15 might be extreme, but when I say extreme, I mean it really was. It was incredible how just maintaining even on your lowest gears, just keeping up even a decent cadence was very difficult. But it would take us most of 2 hours to ascend it. That's how.
So how long does it take to ride a bicycle from Texas to Alaska?
70 days.
Wow.
At an average of 70 miles a day. Here's the coolest fact. I was one of the route captains for my side. I was basically responsible for figuring out what I need to feed these people, where we're staying, the routes, and all that type of stuff. I fed my group of 23 college students that entire trip on $26, and the rest of it was donated. So when we rolled through town, we would just roll into a grocery store and be like, hey, we're doing this really good thing, and if you have any food you want to get, and they would often just be like, yeah, just go grab like 200, 250, just take what you need and we'll ring it up, and it's a write-off for them. It's a non-profit. So I was able to feed hungry, starving. We were burning 10,000 calories a day, so you can imagine what we were putting down, like eating.
Did you sleep in tents or in hotels?
We slept in, so that was the best part. We had
Where do you wash your
host houses. Yeah, we had host houses, so there were places set up where people had enough floor space to where they could invite 23 people in. They're like, oh, y'all can sleep in the basement on the floor. Y'all can blah, blah, blah. A few of you might have to sleep in tents in the backyard, but we'd stay at high school, junior high, gyms. They'd give us they'd open up the gyms and the shower rooms to us because some of these schools were closed for summer. We got to stay in community centers, Lions halls, like the Lions organization, the old people's organization. I can't think of what.
Yeah, like the clubs.
Yeah. I mean,
Kiwanis
you'd be
and
shocked,
like
man. The best was we had one place. It was in Oregon. We arrived and they had a full Thanksgiving feast set up for us in July.
Wow.
We called it Thanksgiving in July. We just showed up and there were turkeys and sweet potato pie and everything you can imagine, and just this big community that welcomed us. And that was the coolest thing about it, is that everywhere we went we got to meet survivors of cancer, people who lost family members too, people who are going through it at the moment, and we always got to give speeches about early detection, treatment options, that kind of thing. So it was really eye-opening in that sense. So I do lace some of that truth into my comedy as well, telling people get checked early and often and that sort of shit, and then make light of it right after.
So what'd you do when you get to Alaska?
We got there. We celebrated.
Sell your bike, fly back?
No. So we actually packed up these big containers, and for most people, they flew them back. And for a small group of us, we packed up our bikes and took our time just getting back with no support. And some people chose to drive the vans back. So the back was all relaxation, wasn't organization based. We just got to go back at our pace. And finally, for once in our life, have a tailwind most days, which you
rode your bicycle back? Or
yeah,
you drove the vans back?
Yeah, well, no, I wasn't in the van group. I rode back.
On your bike, all the way back?
Oh man, yeah, and it was just fucking. That was all relaxation.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, other than trying to cure cancer, what are some of your other most lovable traits that would make people fall in love with you?
Lovable traits. All right, I'm in love with animals. I can't exclude an animal that I'm in love with. I probably don't deal well with arachnids because I don't think they have personalities, but I don't fucking know. I'd give it a shot. But We had, my wife and I were very much trying to move in that motorhome situation, and then we moved into a small RV that we bought. It was only 24 feet by 8 feet, and we lived in that with 4 dogs for 9 months, and that was I liked being a minimalist, not having much, but we have a Saint Bernard, a Pit Bull, a long-haired Chihuahua, and we had a Shepherd mix. She passed away last April.
What are their names?
Okay, so Guinness is our Saint Bernard. He's about 10 years old now, but that's a perfect name for a long-haired. And he's dry mouth, so he doesn't bring you just like a lap full of drool every time he comes near you. But he's everything. He's just everything you would love in a giant breed. And then long-haired Chihuahua, he's the boss. His name is Orso. He's a brown and lighter brown color, very beautiful dog. But even if any of our dogs, they're all his buddy, but if they get in his space, he gives us like fierce, like Tasmanian devil kind of screech growl, and they all, even the Saint Bernard, won't go near him, won't fight him, won't put up. Like sometimes we can't find our pit bull, and we're like we haven't seen her in like a half hour, and then we'll see our Chihuahua standing in the doorway, and the pit bull terrified on the other side of the room. He won't walk through the doorway because the Chihuahua's standing there. Just he must say some really hateful things to him. So Orso, Guinness. Tegan was my shepherd that passed, and Penelope is the pit bull. I found her in the middle of nowhere on my way to a gig in Laredo, Texas. I was on my way to a gig in the middle of the desert. There's not a town, 45 minutes in either direction. It's almost getting hit by several cars. I pull over, open my door, it runs straight in, jumps in my lap, falls asleep. In the next 2 hours, it doesn't move a muscle. It's the cutest goddamn dog I've ever gotten. We scanned it for chips, but even if we had found the owner, we weren't giving that dog back because it was covered in scars and bites, ticks, fleas. It smelled like oil. So she was, the only way I can put it is that she was grateful. Her personality, if I described it, would be grateful. She knows that she was probably going to die out there or wasn't loved before. And the minute I let her into that car from that moment on, every day she looks at you like, whatever you want to do, if you want to hold me or if you want to ignore me, or like, she's just so grateful. She's a terrific dog. Yeah.
Well, we don't have that much time until you go on for the last show. We got 2 shows a night, 7 nights. So this is our 14th show. You've destroyed it every show. You're such a joy to work with, such a joy to watch. You're brilliant, funny, wonderful comedian. You know I'm into knowledge nuggets.
Yes.
So do you have any knowledge nuggets you can delight my listeners with?
Ooh. I don't have. I'm on the spot.
There's nothing important that we should know?
About what's coming up for me, or you're just talking about information in general?
Your love for serial killers?
Oh, I have. Well, I can tune you on to some podcasts that I'm in love with, but like you, we were discussing people like Vlad the Impaler and Mary, Count Mary. What was her name? Countess.
Oh yeah, I'd never heard of that one.
Oh, so yeah, Harry, you never before? So
no, that was
I am fascinated just with serial killers and these types of criminals from history. So I've put so many hours behind many podcasts.
So that woman was in Romania, and her name was Mary, and she thought that virgin blood would keep her skin
looking youthful.
Wow.
Yeah. So and anyone that she found to be more youthful looking than her was on the chopping block. And she'd sneak them in as it's almost disguised as an apprenticeship. Fucking awesome. And again, she's the most successful serial killer in history, too. Because she was just able to carry on and no one was able to prove anything.
Who's your favorite serial killer?
Favorite. What a weird... Isn't that funny? Do you have a favorite?
No, I don't like creepy shit. I mean, like, I read news stories, you know.
It's hard not to, just for the sake of super bizarre, Ed Gein.
Yeah. Every night when there's someone from Wisconsin, did you hear what I said about Wisconsin has given us the most gruesome serial killers in our nation's history?
Succeeded.
Ed Gein cut people's skins off,
lampshades, wore titties under his shirt.
Yeah.
Like, that's got to be the creepiest. That's the furthest out I think I've heard of a person's mind really being. He's just in his own zone. If that's that was his baseline for normal. Very fucking interesting.
Okay, so in closing, is there any words of wisdom or advice that you like to give to the people of the earth?
Okay, and this is just for staying in love, being in love, and staying in love. The trick is making your partner feel loved, wanted, and respected. I think if you have that recipe, because people always want those 3 things. If you succeed at those 3 things and you're consistent in those 3 areas, I feel like relationships have a chance. Make them feel loved, wanted, and respected. Maybe that's oversimplified.
No, I think you got to stay attractive for each other. You got to be careful of not boring the shit out of each other.
100%.
There's a lot of.
I know it's a balancing act, and I'm new, and I'm the last person to give love advice. But I feel like it's the first time I've done a relationship right, and it's overwhelmingly successful. I'm learning from it every day. I'm in uncharted waters, but from what. If you can keep your partner just feeling loved, wanted, and respected, then optimism never fades. The passion never fades. It's kind of that you're directly plugged in thing that keeps you going, keeps you fighting for it.
Well, I love you, John, and I'm happy to work with you. I'm glad to honor you on my podcast. You've always been a happy guy, but now you really have a sparkle in your eye.
Man, thank you so much. I really do appreciate it.
Long may you run, my brother.
Thank you so much.
Long may you run.
Thank you so much.
Tom Rhodes, you're a funny man. Tom Rhodes, you're an international comedian. Tom Rhodes, karate kick, baby, oh yeah. Tom Rhodes, you're a groovy dude. You go all around the world, telling jokes to all of the people. You are an international comedian. You're funny to everybody in every single country in the world. Tom Rhodes, I like you very much. I think you're talented and very wonderful. Tom Rhodes, you're the best guy in the world. I wanna be your friend. You should call me sometime. Here is my phone number, 603-644-0048. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Tom Rhodes, you're an international comedic sensation. Tom Rhodes, I like to listen to your podcast. Tom Rhodes, you're the best man to ever walk on the earth.